Shane, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
By Shane Bishop, founder of an in-home medication delivery and remote patient monitoring company. Into our topic, could you start by telling me a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I sure will. So I'm, pharmacist by profession. In the early days, I was actually the first pharmacist to adopt multi-dose strip packaging into pharmacies that I owned and operated here in Western Canada. I quickly ended up tracking all of the inefficiencies and miscommunications based around that new packaging format as we deployed it to long-term care facilities, and ended up creating an electronic medication administration record that actually links multi-dose strip packaging to the bedside and scanning of barcodes to real-time information flow between pharmacy and long-term care facility and nursing. And we really look to eliminate, medication-related errors at the bedside. So that was my first involvement from pharmacist into technology.
Wow, that's so cool. Could you tell me a little bit about the company's mission?
Yeah, itself is absolutely focused on its core, which is to be the absolute best at driving true medication adherence for patients, whether they're in long-term care facilities, patients at home with multiple chronic conditions. That's our goal, and I think we have the only true fully integrated end-to-end solution with technology and services that allows to drive what I term true medication adherence.
Wow, that's awesome. Who is your focus and where can providers and patients find your services?
I mean, our focus is different in both Canada and the US. In Canada, we've established a network of pharmacies across all the provinces that I would call super innovative pharmacies and pharmacists that want to do better for their patients in their community. So we leverage our network of pharmacies across Canada and actually provide help with marketing via direct-to-consumer campaigns, Facebook, et cetera, with some of our solutions, and drive these higher risks, chronic patients to our pharmacy network, which has been amazing for the patients and the pharmacies. As well, in Canada, we actually spend a lot of time working with governments to collect data, do studies within those structures, and really try to define and look at total cost of care reductions for those entities. So that's kind of what we're doing in Canada. So kind of a two-pronged approach. In the US, we really are focused on health plans, the payers, looking to, ultimately increase HEDIS scores and measures, drive up star ratings, and again, look at total cost of care reduction for payers in the market in the US. Which is starting to go extremely well. And then we also work with providers directly. It could be ACO type organizations that are looking to control their total cost of care. And, I think the concept of chronic care management, remote patient monitoring, driving true medication adherence and lowering those total costs are something that home care agencies, ACOs, certain physician groups are looking to provide now.
That's wonderful. Going off of that, can you tell me a little bit about your transitional care management?
Yeah, when it comes to, transition of care, I guess, ultimately with our solution, we really are trying to focus on patients remaining in the home, which I think is the goal for a number of different, healthcare organizations, companies out there. Remote patient monitoring, chronic care management, from a distance with our clinical pharmacist team is all about keeping patients at home and keeping them out of moving into the more acute settings. When we look at, patients being discharged from hospital, it makes a lot of sense for a number of the conditions such as congestive heart failure to definitely keep a patient adherent to their medications and have some form of connected care hub in the home. So look at real-time, not only medication adherence to make sure the patients are taking their medications that they've been discharged with, but also looking at real-time blood pressure and weight, and have a team of proactive clinicians around that data to really take care of the patients and ensure that they don't end up back in the acute care setting. So our solutions do definitely touch on different pieces of transitional care.
Going into the hubs a bit, can you explain how the central fill hubs work?
Yeah, our goal for, again, driving true adherence is to not only ensure that there's alerts, bells and whistles, alarms on an app or on a patient countertop to drive, it's time to take your medication, but really is ensuring that everything that's packaged is packaged with 100% accuracy. So we know that community pharmacies are unlikely to be able to adopt, at least in scale, multi-dose strip packaging, as well as the vision checking technology that scans for right size, shape, color, and ultimately, the best, format of packaging out there for safety and accuracy of packaging. So what we do is we actually establish high volume central fill hubs, and already done this across North America, so that community pharmacies could actually send orders with our patented technology into our high volume hub, where we package in the multi-dose strip packaging format, run it through vision checking technology for 100% accuracy. We actually track who touched what, where, when in the entire process, and we track lot number, expiry date of every single tablet that's packaged with the community pharmacy's owned inventory. We push that back to the pharmacies, and they then deploy the multi-dose strip packaging format, or other formats we can package as well, to the patients, either in long-term care facilities, SNFs, assisted living, and or in a patient's home with a connected hub on the countertop. We track the whole thing from start to finish.
Wow, that's incredible. How do these hubs free up time to allow for the focus to be on patient care?
Yeah, one of the things that, with the experience of being one of the first pharmacies, in North America to scale packaging automation, it's quite time consuming in your pharmacy. It's a great piece of automation, does a better job than humans at checking for medication packaging errors and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it is a lot of work for the pharmacy. So if we can shift that workload from community pharmacies to our central hub, the packaging side is a commodity. Let us do that. Have the pharmacies actually focus on real-time data flow into their pharmacy. So with our technology, pharmacies in the community actually have access to real-time data, which includes, when did the patient, or when has the patient, pulled out the pouch of medication from a device, when we get that signal back in real time to the pharmacy. So pharmacists can now look at medication adherence and real-time data versus worried about checking, packaging. So we really like to shift that workload to our hubs and have pharmacies focus on, driving down total cost of care and increasing adherence.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. How can this help improve patient outcomes, or how have you seen this?
I mean, I think overall, we have definitely the best solution out there right now for, not only packaging, multi-dose strip packaging, running through vision checking technology, including community pharmacy. So we're not going out and direct serving patients. We really are empowering community pharmacies to scale with them so that they can look at this data. The other thing that happens with our solutions is, like I mentioned, there's the bells and whistles, beep, flash, pull out your, reminder. But we ask questions at that time on our devices and our apps. Marissa, how are you feeling today? Happy face, sad face. We get all this data back in real time. And then we have a group of clinical pharmacists that look at this data in real time, and you can detect, issues early on in the care cycle, and bundle up data and triage to physicians to really keep patients out of the acute care setting, which is absolutely amazing, right? So really leveraging, the capacity of pharmacy to look at data in real time, not just adherence data, but everything else to do with the patient, and then triage that information in a timely fashion to the doctors involved, and really drive down that total cost of care.
It's incredible. How have you seen overall the healthcare system changing, and how have you seen you sort of as a leader in this sort of change with telemedicine and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, timing is everything. There was definitely a movement towards telehealth, and of course the pandemic came along, and I think, telehealth as a concept has really taken a foothold, which is amazing. I believe that's just scratching the surface in the care of a patient. But what it has done, it has allowed for technologies to be accepted in a more prevalent way within the patient home now. So, first step was telehealth. Second step is, how do you remote patient monitor, patients with, multiple chronic conditions? And I think that's the next evolution now, and I think telehealth opened the door for that. So I think, having a connected care hub, our connected care hub, and there's multiple hubs trying to, that coming out and showing up on countertops these days, but our hub is really about the core being medication adherence. The medication's in there, it's connected in real time to the pharmacy. So that's level one. And then it's collecting all the peripheral data on top of that, your Bluetooth weight and blood pressure and temperature and O2 sat, all that data. And then looking at that data in real time with a group of clinicians. And we happen to use clinical pharmacists because we have the capacity to do so, and really look to drive down total costs of care with that model.
You touched on this a bit with the pandemic, but how has accessibility been especially important throughout the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, why I also enjoy working with the community pharmacies is the community pharmacies throughout the pandemic stay in touch with their patients. Their patients likely need delivery from their local community pharmacy. So we really work within that framework and piggyback on the distribution of our products and technologies into the home through our pharmacy network. And these pharmacies are strong. They're working with their patients weekly, providing medication delivery already. It's a model that's been really working well throughout the pandemic.
Switching gears a little bit, how can this design help providers with their business models?
I think providers right now are trying to do more with less for sure. We all know the shifting demographics and trying to keep the aging population at home. There's not enough, nurses, physicians to really themselves to be the tier one group looking at data in real time. So pharmacy does have some capacity. There's a lot of clinical pharmacists that have been involved with medication therapy management, over the years, and shifting that mindset from just straight up medication therapy management, which has been great and effective, to more rounded care by looking at other data, adherence, actually driving down total cost of care. But this is by looking at patient reported outcome data in real time, responding, asking follow-up questions. Our solutions and devices basically drive a 80+% response rate to questions when we pop them up at the screen at the time of administration, which is amazing. So we have a wealth of data coming our way. So it really is, working with our clinical pharmacist team and then partnering with the providers. We can do all of this for you in partnership. And together we can go after, some of these, chronic care management, fees that are now available in the market, increase scores and measures, drive down total costs of care for those ACOs and those cost saving, solutions and structures. So lots of different ways we like to partner and work with providers. And then, we're definitely been successful doing that, and we're excited to keep moving in that direction.
That's awesome. Could you talk a little bit about the 528 billion suboptimal medication management problem?
Yeah, I think the concept of medication issues in general drive, obviously, as you just mentioned, major costs to the system. That could be via medication waste because of the amount of medication that's floating around in the system. Most of the reimbursement for pharmacies, both in Canada and the US, have really been based on 90-day supplies of medication. So if something happens to a patient or there's a change within the first week, a lot of this medication is just getting, flushed down the toilet, unfortunately. But everything we do is in more of a short cycle. We drive, 7, 14, 30-day supplies of medications at the most to drive down down the medication waste issues. But when you look at medication adherence as an issue, obviously, if patients aren't taking their medications, they're more likely to end up in an acute care setting, which drives up, costs. But medication adherence itself is you need a multi-pronged approach to actually impact that. Again, it's not just about the medication reminders and having come up with reminder systems. There's all types of gadgets on the market now that'll beep and flash and tell a patient to take their medication. But it's more around if a patient, as an example, thinks that the medication is not working, they'll just stop taking it. So how do you communicate and engage a patient in a way that they understand that they still need to take it? If a patient has side effects from a medication, they'll also stop taking it. What happens now is pharmacies, everyone's blind to whether a patient's taking their medication or not. There's no direct feedback. Patient comes into the pharmacy every 90 days. Perhaps you will catch it then. But in the meantime, the patient hasn't been taking their medication. So by engaging patients, asking questions through our devices and getting those responses back, we can really look after, true adherence and keep patients out of the acute care setting as a result and impact that, $500 billion issue.
That's an amazing point. That makes a lot of sense. going off of that, how can you help empower pharmacies to grow their presence in existing markets, but also expand in general to new markets?
Yeah, one thing we're super successful at is that pharmacies that join our network and want to do something different, for that higher risk population. We help them. So we will, leverage our pharmacy network to attract and attain, payer contracts, in the US, health plans and the more community pharmacies we have, the more population we can address, but we end up driving new volumes of patients to pharmacies, and it's difficult for pharmacies to compete. There's a lot of pharmacies, there's a lot of great pharmacy chains and independent owners, but how do you compete for the same population? How do you compete for that higher risk patient that has multiple medications, right, to drive up your margins within your pharmacy? It's very difficult to attract that patient. With what we're doing with solutions technology on the patient countertop that health plans and providers want for their patients, we're able to move patients, from wherever they may be, to pharmacies that really want to participate in driving down total cost of care and do something a bit better for patients overall.
That's incredible. What would you say are any key takeaways or last minute thoughts on the topic that you think is really important for either providers or patients to know about you and this organization?
I think overall we're the full end-to-end solution for sure. We own and operate high volume hub pharmacies that package, that I think is in the, definitely in the best interest of patients. Multi-dose strip packaging, run through vision checking technology for 100% packaging accuracy. We have patented technology that sits in pharmacies that communicates with our high volume hubs that ensures whatever should be packaged has actually been packaged. And we track those tablets, pills, et cetera, right to the end of the line from a device. And then we wrap around, what is the best in class in medication adherence, a service, a clinician service around the data that we're seeing in real time to really empower our providers, our health plans, anyone that's interested in taking care of patients in a lower cost way, and partnering and looking at how we can do that together. So I think we have probably the easily the best end-to-end technology solution, and we have added an amazing team of clinical pharmacists to scale this. So we're excited to continue to deploy this and help our partners.
This was great. Thank you so much for joining me today and speaking on this topic. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, thank you so much.